Why does she stay? Why doesn't she just leave? The answer to that are many. There are various factors that come up when answering that question. But I picked 3 specifically to pinpoint what I thought were important factors to be aware of and become more conscious of. The first one being the answer to why doesn't she just leave is there is something called trauma bonding that is a psychological phenomenon that actually occurs, which the victim develops empathy towards her abuser. We see this in the Stockholm Syndrome. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that term. When someone is taken hostage, they become empathetic towards their captor. It is called trauma bonding. So this is a very real psychological occurrence that happens in these types of abusive relationships. The next answer to the question, why doesn't she just leave? Many relationships are controlled by the abuser. Every single aspect of the relationship, and that includes financial. Yes, that includes resources, availability to the woman, access to a vehicle, isolating her, keeping her away from friends and her family so that she doesn't have a way of getting out. So isolation is another answer to that question. And the final answer to that, there are plenty of shelters, women's shelters, domestic violence shelters that are out here, and they do such a wonderful job at housing so many women and their children. But I'm saddened to say that at the end of the day, there are many shelters that have to turn away women because of lack of capacity to house these women and their children. When we're asking the question, why doesn't she just leave? I want you to remember that she has nowhere to go. She might not have friends or family, or even if she does, she might be ashamed of what she's experiencing behind closed doors, because family is supposed to be a beautiful thing. It's not meant to be something horrid and traumatic and scary to experience behind closed doors. These are the 3 answers to the question, why doesn't she just leave? Which brings me to my next point. I mentioned 1 in 4 women will be affected by violence or abuse. I'm going to bring up our teenage girls, that we're looking at 1 in 3 teenage girls will be affected by abuse and violence in a relationship they're having with their boyfriends. Although we have come a very long way in the fight against domestic violence and violence against women, we are still here today raising awareness on this issue because obviously it is still going on. I believe it is up to us to create a violence-free community, a violence-free neighborhood, and a violence-free Brampton and Peel. And the only way we're going to accomplish this is by prevention, because prevention equals lives that are saved. As you can see here today, and we hope that we've left the impression and made a point that all the shoes that are here should be a remembrance of what actually has happened to our women and children, and this should not be happening. I want to thank you today that you've all come out here. I want you to know that you're not just supporting me as I'm speaking, you're supporting the many guest speakers and survivors that have come up here so far, and the ones that will follow after me. You're supporting a cause that is dear to my heart, and I hope your heart as well. You're also supporting future generations of youth that will be violence-free. As a special thank you for having you here today, I'd like to present to you my newest song, Chasing Rainbows. This song speaks to all women, saying that you will find strength in finally removing yourself from an abusive relationship. So now, without further ado, I present to you the gift of Chasing Rainbows. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.